Hello, and once again, welcome to Off the Cuffs. I'm Bobby Kimbrough. Today I have with me Will, as he prefers to be called, just Will. He said it was good enough for Mom, it's good enough for me. So I'd like to welcome you to Off the Cuffs today. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that very few people talk about, but it happens so frequently in our community, and I thought it was worth having a discussion this time of year. I know it is 'tis the season to be happy, 'tis the season to be jolly, but also it's 'tis the season when a lot of depression seeps into the minds of our residents. It's the season when suicide rate is high, and a lot of people are reflecting this time of year, some in good ways and some in bad ways. So we wanted to talk about suicide today. I want to talk about a very serious issue, a very serious topic. But before we get into the topic, I just want you to please introduce yourself to the listeners and the viewers.
Okay. Again, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Will Eads. I'm a counselor and psychotherapist for CareNet Counseling, which is an affiliate of Wake Forest Baptist Health. Been in this work about 12, 13 years. I came out of a career in engineering. Came out of that, went into divinity school. About halfway through divinity school, my paths crossed with a guy by the name of Bill Amos. He kind of introduced me to the world of mental health and showed me this as an option in terms of a career and a livelihood. And so kind of the rest was history in terms of that. I entered CareNet Counseling as a resident back in 2013, and so been with them since then. There's an entity of the hospital that I work primarily for in terms of clinical responsibilities. It's called Best Health, and I have mainly two responsibilities from that, and one is at Flow Automotive, and the other is with y'all for Forsyth County government that I serve, providing behavioral health services.
Well, I appreciate you coming by today. I wanted to have this conversation for several reasons. A few weeks ago, I responded to a suicide call in the county, and as I spoke to the family and I sat back in my car while the detectives and everybody were doing what they do, and I was looking at the family and I saw the grief, I saw the hurt, I saw the pain in their eyes, and I said that, that did not have to happen. It did not have to be. And I know this is a time of season when a lot of people get down, so, they don't have what they want. They don't feel like they are what they should be. And so they choose an alternate route of suicide. And I'm in full disclosure and transparency. Friends of mine and those that know me have heard me talk about midnight is what I refer to it as, midnight being a metaphor for difficult times in your life. I always talk about how there are really three kinds of people. Those of us that are going into a midnight, those of us that are currently in a midnight, those of us that are coming out of a midnight, but then there's a fourth kind, those that don't make it out, those that take their lives. And as I said, midnight being a metaphor for difficult times when the darkest point of your life, when you don't see how you're going to make it out. And I've been transparent with everything that I do at this point in my life, and I reflect back on a time in my life when I was at that place where I contemplated, things were dark then. There was some bad things going on in my life, and I didn't know if I wanted to continue to be here. And I can speak for myself, and a lot of times that I've discovered is that there are a lot of issues that people have that they don't want to talk about. They are ashamed that they're feeling a certain way. What I have learned is, and I want you to help our listeners and our viewers with this, is that the same mindset that you find yourself in when you're in this dark place is not the mindset that's going to free you or help you start to get back to normalcy. And I say that because when I was at that place, the thing that brought me from that place was, I can't do this to my children, being their only parent still living. I can't let them have the stigma that their father got weak enough to take himself away from them. And so that was the part that clicked and brought me back to, I'm going to fight, no matter what's going on in my life. If I still got life, health, I can win, I can win, I can win. But everybody don't get back from that midnight, that dark place. I've had people that I've known and I talked with over the last years that was share things with me. How do I get through this? How do I get through this? What do I do? And so I said I wanted to bring someone on the show that could address these issues, because this is that time of year, when people go into those midnights. And I want you to help bring some people that may be contemplating that, people that may know someone but don't know what to say. What do they do? What are the signs? Where do they get help from? I'm just fortunate enough that God saw fit to click something in my spiritual being and my mental being to realize that what I was going through really wasn't that serious. What I was going through was something that I could come back from, something that, hey, I did bounce back from. And so I think that a lot of people don't make it back, and I want you to, like I said earlier, to share with us. I heard you say that the entity that you work for, but what brought you to go into this type of counseling? What type of skill set do you have? Because when people sit across from me and say they have an expertise, I like to know who my guests are. I like to know how did they get there. Everybody has a story as how they arrived at the place that they are in life. So I want you to share that with us, and I want you to tell us, what do we look for? How do we, and where do people go when they need help? Because everybody can't afford to go get professional help.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all great questions. And to touch briefly on something that you mentioned about how that I got into this. I lost my father at the age of 5, and so I have no memory of him. I had no history there. There was nothing. You just wake up one day and they're gone. And so that sort of created, if you would, an abscess of curiosity. Our residency director at CareNet says that the absence of curiosity is prejudice. And so I started out with that curiosity pretty early, I think, that it just sort of created a lot of questions, and it made me realize that life is very complex. It's not as simplistic, I think, as we like to assume or presume it is. To do this work requires a lot of empathy. I think it requires a desire to understand people. I'm a big fan of Carl Rogers, and one of the things that Rogers says is that is the most precious gift that we can give to people, is understanding them. And deepening that understanding, not just a surface understanding of them, but a deepened understanding of them, and being interested in that. The things that we look for in terms of, and I'll say this, over the course of training and education, you get a very objective understanding of suicide and of suicidal ideation and intent, and I'll distinguish between those in just a moment. But I don't think anything or anyone has helped me more than just sitting with people over the years in a room, listening to their stories and gaining that understanding of how that they got there and what happened in their life that may or may not have caused that. And so one of the things that we do in counseling and in psychotherapy is we distinguish between ideation and intent. Ideation is having the thoughts, the feelings, the desires. That what I often tell clients and patients, that's a normal part of the human experience, is for us to have those thoughts, feelings, and desires. Sometimes we reach places in our life where we find that what's going on is unbearable and it's overwhelming, and we can't get past that moment.
So you're saying my thought was normal at that time?
I do. For likely for whatever was happening in your life at that given moment in time, having those thoughts, I think is normal. I think it's humanistic to experience those. But we always take time to distinguish between the ideation, which is that having those normal thoughts, feelings, and desires, and then there's intent. Intent is when those thoughts, feelings, and desires graduate into gestures, behaviors, attempts, if you would. And that's where sort of that's a whole different conversation. Talking about it from an ideation perspective versus an intent perspective is two different things. So we try to, and what we find is when people are in that ideation stage, having someone that they can talk to process those thoughts, those feelings, those desires, whatever they may be, actually helps alleviate a lot of that could have eventually turned into intent.
Well, since there's nobody here but you and me, right, I'm going to use myself and be the psychoanalyst client. So in my case, there was nobody that I wanted to share what was going on with me. Sure, there were several people that I probably could have went to. I share this story because it's relevant. I was at a place where I didn't know how I was going to make ends meet. I had just lost a spouse. It was a difficult time trying to raise boys, financial obligations, stress, and just everything of one day you hear, the next day you hear in terms of economical status, and you don't know how you're going to make it, how you're going to get out. And the pressure of being here and now you're there, you're losing material things in your life, property, all type of things just swirling around in your head, and you're trying to figure out, how do I get out? How do I get out? And the only way I can get out is check out. And so I guess from your analysis, there was a analytical or ideology or thought of it. And so, but in my case, while I had the thought, I had the intent. My intent was to carry it out. I know that you went to divinity school at Wake Forest, and a lot of people may not understand what I'm about to say, and some may not, but I don't really care if they do or don't. But in my case, I had made up in my mind that that's what I was going to do. My parents didn't know it at the time, but when I went by the house to see them that night, and I left my kids at their house intentionally that night, that was my intent. And my mother told me to sit down because she could tell that I was agitated. And I remember my mother saying, I want you to pray. And I said to my mother at that time in my life, how I'm going to pray to somebody that I don't know. And she said to me, but he knows you. And I've never cursed my mother before, but that time I said, Mother, I don't want to hear that. Yeah. And I left. And I drove back to Kernersville from Winston-Salem, and when I got to the house, I had made up my mind that this was it. And I remember walking into the house upstairs and just sitting in the recliner with my Glock. And as I was reflecting over my life at that moment and just thinking about the interaction with my mother, and I had just cussed my mother, saying I didn't want to hear that. And I said, I'm going to honor her request just one last time, and I'm going to pray. The only prayer that I knew at that time in my life, because I had not joined the church at that time in my life, had never been baptized at that point in my life, was the Lord's Prayer, which I had said all through high school and college before every game. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. I knew the Lord's Prayer, and I said it. And what I can tell you, I don't know if I was asleep, because I hadn't been asleep in a couple of days. I don't know what it was, but I woke up the next morning, and I had all of my faculties and everything about me. And I laughed at myself when I woke up, because I realized that I had on the same socks and the same underwear, the same T-shirt for the last 3 days. And it was something that clicked in my head, and I said, I got to get myself together. I got to get myself together. It actually scared me at the place that I was in and what I had just come through. And I talked about it, and sometimes when I speak and I refer to it as beyond midnight, that was the darkest point of my life by far. And I was at a strange place, such a strange place that I cursed God. I've since begged his pardon and asked for forgiveness for that. I said, I'm going to give you 2 for 1. You know, I had just lost my spouse, and I just said, you know what? I'm going to take control. You don't control this. I do. That's just arrogance, and sometimes, you know, that's the fall of a lot of us. And so I was at a strange place in my life, and I look back and it's scary. And so when I talk to people, and I've talked to a lot of people since then that have been in situations that I have shared my story with, and now I don't have a problem talking about it now, because I feel like, and you just told me something that made me feel even better. You said that that's normal for people to have those thoughts when they go through difficult times. And I talk with a lot of people, and I was talking with the psychologist. They didn't know what the conversation was, but they were helping me, and they didn't realize that they were actually helping me. And they were talking about what's known as a situational depression. You're depressed based on the situation that you're in. And what had happened was the situation that I was in had took me to that place of contemplating that. And so that episode in my life was the building block for everything thereafter. And you say CareNet, right? Realize that you got to care for people. Realize that all of us sometimes are in dark places and difficult places. So how do we throw that net? How do we reach that? Yeah. How do we help those? Because by all accounts, that night should have gotten me. And I attribute it to that prayer. I attribute it to God had other plans for me. But that episode changed my life. It made me a fighter. It made me, no matter what comes against me, I can win. No matter what my circumstances are, I can win. And so I was glad when you agreed to come and talk about it, because I know there are a lot of people out there right now going through situations where they don't see no way out. They don't see no win. And so I want you to give us something, give them something to let them know that there is win, there is hope. You know, without hope, what do we have?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And It's been through the years of sitting and listening that I've gained this understanding and this capacity to work with individuals when they get to that place. One of the things that we can do is stop demonizing suicide, and humanizing it instead of demonizing it.
Explain that, because there's a lot of people going to call or write back and say, what did he mean by that, demonize? Because from a spiritual perspective, people say that's the devil causing you to do that. So when you say demonizing it, explain that.
It goes back to the stigma of you shouldn't think like that, you shouldn't feel like that, you shouldn't have those kind of desires. You shouldn't let yourself go there. And so what we find is when a person experiences in counseling, they experience a normalizing and a validating of their experience and what they're going through. And hearing that first, and appreciating that, and then saying there are other options, there are other alternatives. I think in a very subtle way, that's what your mom was offering you. It's like there's it doesn't have to be this way. When people are so convinced that it is. One of the things that we know that people who follow through with suicide, and even backing up to that, who just have the ideation, there's a lot of hopelessness and there's a lot of loneliness. Here again, these are very human conditions that we all experience at some point in our lives, and we don't feel like that we can get past those moments.
So it doesn't have to be both for it to take place. And I say that because, just backing up, I wasn't lonely. When I say I wasn't lonely, I was hurting, but there were so many people or so many things that I had access to that loneliness wasn't it. It was hope. How do I get from here? And you hit it on the head when you said demonizing it. The situation that I was in, I could have went to my parents and said, I need your help here, here, and here. But I didn't, because we have a culture that when you ask for help, it tends to weaken you, or you appear to be weak. Right. And then you said something else, and you said that when you in that place, in that space, you don't have long-term vision. Your vision is just right here in this circle. I can't see outside of this. All I could see was, this just happened, this just happened. I can't do this and this. I'm getting pressure everywhere, and I can't handle it. I can't see my way beyond this space. I can't see my way beyond it. Right. And so I don't think that my mother knew, and then, she may have known. I don't think that she knew what I was about to do, because I've been good at hiding my emotions. I've been a good poker player. I've been groomed that way over my years of professions, that I have the ability to smile when I'm angry. I have the ability to hide my emotions. I've always been able to hide my emotions. Until recently, it was always difficult for me to say I love you. So now when I walk around here, the people probably say, why does he always say, have I told you I love you lately? It's because I realize the power of words. I realize a lot of things in my life at this late stage in my life. And so, you're saying, you're hitting all the spots, some of the things you're saying, because those were one of the things, hope. It wasn't loneliness. In my case, it was hope. And so when I see situations like this, when I respond to them, the suicides that we've had in this county, it touches me. Overdose and the suicides, they bring tears in my eyes, because they bring a different emotion. homicides bring emotions. All of the things I see bring an emotion, but those two bring a different emotion because I've been there where the person is that committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sat in front of the family house of the young girl that took her life, I sat in front of their house while the detectives were in there, and I said, it's so close to Christmas. The Christmas tree is up, but yet she won't see it. And I started asking myself, what is it that could have been said or could have been done to save her life? And so I struggled with that for a few minutes, and then I had to take my thoughts somewhere else because it's something about that space that you're talking about that it draws you. I mean, it just draws you in. It draws you into it.
And what we try to encourage people to do is not to wait until it even gets to ideation. But if you're thinking about it, if you're contemplating it, if you're considering it, to go ahead and come in. I have a saying that I say quite a bit. You don't wait till all the wheels fall off before you take your car into the garage. When you begin having, you referred to the midnight peace. It's like when you feel that coming on, when you see that, when you sense that or experience it, to go ahead and try to reach out to someone. And again, I'm very careful in identifying this for people. I can't know how people feel. I can't know how they think.
True.
I can't know what they're going through.
True.
But through the empathetic listening, through providing a presence that's not judgmental, that's not critical, that's not condemning.
How do we break that judgmental? How do we break that piece that you're talking about? Because when you said they should go get help, right? That's just like the same stigma that when we talked about drug addiction, the opioids, the stigma that's always tied to somebody or someone that's not hitting all the marks. So when people cry out and say, I need help in certain situations, society looks at them as less than. It looks at them as weak. How do we break that stigma? How do we break that to where society now looks at them as normal, as caring, as it's all right? Because if the truth were told and we had a way to find out, there are a lot of people that have issues that they dare not talk about. Mm-hmm. They've learned to mask it. Mm-hmm. They learned to deal with it. What a different world this would be that if we had the courage to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, help me move from there. This is what I'm struggling with. Help me move from here. Mm-hmm. And so how do we break that? I mean, how do we do that? So at your facility, if someone calls you and says, this is what I'm dealing with, if they don't have the financial means, will you see them?
Mm-hmm. Yes. We have interns. We have residents. We also work off a sliding scale. If people do not have insurance or they don't have a financial means to pay, we can accommodate them at CareNet. Yes.
Well, you know what? I can't speak for the people, but if I have an issue, I don't want to see the intern. I want to see the guy. You know what I mean? That guy, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know why I had to throw that out there, but
Sure.
You said interns. But you will see the people. You will provide a service for them.
Yeah, we're not going to turn people away.
And what's the name of the place again?
CareNet Counseling.
CareNet Counseling. Where are you located?
We're located at the intersection of Hawthorne, and I'm trying to think of that road. It's diagonally across from the hospital.
Hawthorne, that First Street?
Not First Street. Is it Queens?
Queens.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, Hawthorne and Queens.
Yeah. We're right beside the Ronald McDonald House.
Okay, now that everybody know where that is. Yeah.
We're the house right beside
there.
Right beside of it.
Okay.
Would you like me to give the number?
I'm going to ask you that, yes.
Okay,
Go ahead.
it's area code 336-716-0855.
That's a Baptist Hospital prefix, 716, ain't it?
We're part of Wake Forest
Yeah,
Baptist.
336-716.
0855.
0855. 716-0855. 716-0855. Yes, I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you're doing. It's a conversation I'm sure we could talk about for another 5 hours because I want everyone to feel that there is hope. Loneliness, you get over that, I believe. It's the hope that people got to have. To me, hope is the most important because if I have hope, my hope is that I'll find someone and I'll get over the loneliness. If I got hope, I have hope that I can make it through this midnight or this difficult time that I'm going through. If I have hope, I believe that I can beat this illness or whatever people or whatever your proclivity or whatever you may be dealing with. To me, hope is the greatest of them all. That's just my opinion. I really appreciate you. I've seen you, met you a couple of times. I have a new appreciation for you. I'm glad you stopped by because I want everyone to feel that there is hope, there is resources in this community in which they can obtain, they can access, and that there are professionals as well as interns that are available to help them. But I just want to segue into something else that when you first came on and we were talking offline, right? First, I want to apologize for having lunch, my nabs and my Mountain Dew.
It's all right.
And you hurt my feelings when you started talking about Mountain Dew and Sun Kiss?
Sun Drop.
Sun Drop.
No, I meant that as complimentary.
It was complimentary?
Yeah.
But you said, explain what you said again about the Sun Drop and the Mountain Dew.
So if you, so I fish quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you have a fish that is gut hooked or has injuries or is bleeding, you can take either Mountain Dew or Sun Drop, pour it down the fish's mouth or pour it on whatever's bleeding. It coagulates their blood.
Really?
And causes them to stop bleeding, and they'll usually be okay. Yeah.
So you know what? So you just, now that you explained it like that, right, you just told me that Mountain Dew is not only good for humans, but it's good for fish.
So how can you go wrong?
How can I go wrong? I like you even more. Because the reason when you started talking about it, I was going to say, he really just insulted me about my favorite.
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure. But on a serious note, I appreciate you for coming by.
Thank you.
I do. I enjoyed having you, and keep doing what you're doing in the community because there's a lot of people hurting out there. There's a lot of people that need your services this time of year. I applaud Baptist for what you're doing and the services you provide, not only for Flow, but what you provide here with the Forsyth County. I appreciate that because it is so much needed because I want people to know where they can go to get help during this season and every day of their life should they need it.
Are you okay with me speaking to that just a little bit?
Of course I am.
Okay. My office is located off of Highland Avenue. I'm over where the old EMS location was.
Yeah.
They're within the same building. They just moved down the hall. So my office is there. This is for anyone who is an employee of Forsyth County government. It doesn't matter if they're part-time, full-time.
What's the address? You guys have a card on you?
I do not.
So you came without a card?
I have cards, but it doesn't have the address on it. But it's over off of Highland. Yeah.
So you're saying that anyone that's an employee, part-time, full-time, who works for Forsyth County, whether it's sheriff, whether it's EMS, whether it's whatever, Forsyth County.
Social services.
You provide the services.
Yes.
And you're located over off of Highland. Mm-hmm. You got a phone number? Is the same phone number?
My phone? No, it's a different number.
Do you want to give? You feel comfortable giving it?
I do. This is for employees of Forsyth County government. It's area code 336 705 9660.
9660.
They can text me or call me.
I like that. Yeah. They can text you or call you. Say the number again.
336
336
705
705
9660.
9660. I appreciate that. You can call or text.
Call
Now
or
my
text.
next question is, so say I don't have a job, I'm not an employee for Forsyth County, will you see me?
With my work at Flow Automotive and Forsyth County government, I'm pretty busy. But when you call the number there at CareNet Counseling, we will find you someone.
So if I call you or call CareNet, you're going to find counseling for the people. That's what I want to know.
Yes.
That's what I wanted
Yes.
to hear. I appreciate you. And once again, thank you for stopping by Off the Cuffs. Once again, have a happy new year and a great beginning of a new decade. And may God continue to smile upon you and all of the county and all of the country, because we're hurting throughout this country.
You too.
Thank you very much.